So I didn't watch any of the trailers for this movie. I had no idea what I was really getting into. I think I might have caught a glimpse of one of the ads, and all it really told me was this might be a don't worry darling situation, and I was a little hesitant about that, but I was still interested in it because I was like, Zoe Kravitz is directing. Interesting. Let's see how she does. And I also saw Channing Tatum on the poster, and I'm like, all right, man. I'm going to keep it pretty vague for now, just talk about the technical stuff and what I liked. I'll get into spoilers a little bit later, but I'm not going to spend too much time on this movie. Basically, to start this off, Zoe Kravitz knows what she's doing behind the camera. She made this film look really good. She's got a really nice location. All of it feels practical and in camera. There's certain camera angles and movements that she'll use to just build this feeling of unease and tension throughout the entire film, and I honestly thought it was really well executed. I mean, the lighting's great, all the shots are really pretty to look at. Editing is pretty solid too. I think it works well for both comedic and serious moments, and yes, there is some comedy sprinkled into this movie, and it's actually pretty funny. It's not a comedy exclusively, quite the opposite, matter of fact, but when they do crack a joke or make a comment, it's enough to get a chuckle out of you. For example, you'll have a scene where a character is doing something they shouldn't be, and someone's about to walk in on them, and they'll cut back and forth at the appropriate time, and that just helps build the tension, and it's an effective formula that's withstood the test of time, and I think Zoe Kravitz implemented it well into her film too. Naturally, I have to talk about the performances. Just about everyone here is giving their all. Channing Tatum and Naomi Ackie are, of course, the standouts here. Naomi Ackie I've only ever seen in The Rise of Skywalker, and I think she was in that Whitney Houston film, but I didn't end up actually seeing that. She is great in here, really summoning the emotion and really making a believable character out of her performance. Channing Tatum as well gives a really solid performance. He's got plenty of scenes to really flesh out this character, and he also gets the chance to implement a lot of body language into this performance, which I think is really effective for the film overall, because a lot of it is subtle and nuanced, and it's not just overt and everything. He's got to play it calm. His whole character is a calm guy, a really nice and chill dude, and how he's able to just bring emotion out of such a simple and relaxed performance is really impressive. I think he's got some great scenes, some great dialogue, and he just did a really good job with his character. Adriana Arjona is really coming up in recent years as well. Thankfully, she was able to pull herself out of that god-awful Morbius mess from 2 years ago and was actually able to land a role in Andor and in Hitman earlier this year, and now this film. And again, she's bringing her A-game. She's doing a very good job at selling her performance and making her character feel believable. There's not a whole lot of bad acting in this film, virtually at all. Got a couple of other big names like Christian Slater, Simon Rex, Gina Davis popping up here. It's a pretty stacked cast, but they're all used pretty effectively, I think. So staying out of the details for now, but the plot, I think, is actually really interesting. It goes down some twists and turns that you're just along for the ride, and you're waiting with bated breath to see where this is going and what the reveal is going to be, and it was actually really interesting and did a good job of building that intrigue. Now, the film is very metaphorically charged. This whole thing is, well, I'm not going to get into it, but you'll know it when you see it and when you get into the film. But really, I think that some scenes work better than others. I only say that because when you have a film built on the back of a metaphor and a particular message, you need to be careful about how you implement it and how you are demonstrating that in your narrative. Sometimes it comes off super duper preachy. Sometimes it comes off brilliant and nuanced. And that, I think, is the biggest challenge for any screenwriter. Now, in this film, I think it's a mix of both. I think there are some scenes where they do a really good job and it makes you think and it puts things in perspective for you. I think there's other scenes where they're laying it on a bit thick and it's just like, okay, pump the brakes, we get it. I'm not a fan of films when every time you're trying to process this message that they're sending your way, they're kind of just going, get it, get it, get it. It's like, yeah, I get it. Can you just let me watch the movie and not lecture me? Even if it's a metaphor or a message that you don't necessarily agree with, sometimes it's just a little bit more fun to watch a movie and have that nuance there. So if you wanted to look deeper into it, you can recognize the thematic ties and just be like, oh, wow, yeah, that's what that means. That's really interesting how they're able to connect this and everything. And then if you don't agree with the message, you can just separate that from the story and be like, well, I just still like this movie. But if you really do link onto that, then you're just like, wow, yeah, this is what inspires me and here's why. And though it did a good job in certain areas, it wasn't always amazing in others. And as one last complaint, I will say, I think even though the majority of this movie is pretty strong and pretty fun to watch, the ending is kind of where it lost me. Now, a typical trend I've noticed in movies, especially recently, has been having 2 third acts to end the film. This doesn't necessarily do that, but it definitely didn't know where to stop when ending the film. There is a third act conclusion, and I think right at the end of that would have been a great place to just stop the movie and you clock out at an hour and 35 minutes or whatever. But we tack on a couple extra minutes before the credits roll, and we have this short little epilogue that I think shoots the message right in the foot. But yeah, the third act in general just felt kind of convenient. You'll know it when you see it. I'm not going to get into details, but it just felt a little too easy of an ending, I guess. But again, it didn't totally compromise the movie, and if the movie ended there, I think it would have been a decent story. Now, I do still like this movie, don't get me wrong, but I do think this epilogue does undercut it, and that's where I mainly took issue with it. I am still remaining on the more positive side of things in terms of how I would score this, but it is a little bit of a nag at the back of my head. Okay, so to be more specific, I'm going to get into spoilers really quick, so here's your time code if you want to skip right to my rating. I'm just going to talk about this epilogue really quick, and then we'll get on with the rest of the video. So spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Spoilers begin now. Okay, at the end of this movie, Channing Tatum is revealed to be the bad guy, and all his friends are a bunch of degenerates who were taking advantage of these women. And the way they were able to wrap this up was because Naomi Ackie was able to put the perfume into his vape pen, and he puffed on it, and that was making him forget everything. And then he kind of like whacked his head on the table and knocked himself out, and then all the stuff started burning, and I was like, okay, this is a little bit convenient that it's wrapping up like that, but at the same time, I don't hate it, and I think it, that would have been a decent place for the movie to end. But then we have this epilogue where it shows that he's still going about his business, but he's got Naomi Ackie with him now as his wife, and she's kind of puppeteering him now and running the show while he's still the figurehead. So this is what really was kind of frustrating to me, because the whole movie is telling you that there are sick individuals out there who will take advantage of the desperate, of the vulnerable, and ravage them for their own personal pleasure and desire. And the film cannot stress enough just how wrong this is. And yet at the very end of the movie, we are shown that our main protagonist, who just suffered through all that crap, is now flipping the table and now is the abuser of her abuser. What? It would have been great if he got put in prison, we had something else, but then you would have been waiting for the other shoe to drop the whole time. I really don't think that epilogue was necessary at all. I think if you just end it with that final shot before you cut to the epilogue, you would have had a really, really solid movie, and this epilogue just kind of shot this narrative in the foot, like I said before, and I really didn't understand the point of it or why it was all that necessary. Because now you're almost making this excuse where, oh, it's okay when women do it. And whether that was the intention or not, that's what the film is almost implying when they're doing something like that. And I think a lot of people are going to be rubbed the wrong way by it. I was totally on board with the message of we need to stand up to predators and help out victims of abuse because this is absolutely wrong and inexcusable. But when all of a sudden you're saying, hey, well, show them what for and be the very thing that you swore to destroy, yeah, I don't know if I'm totally on board with that. But overall, I don't think this is a bad movie. I think this is a pretty good movie, but it's flawed. That's no revelation. I think Zoe Kravitz is showing a lot of promise in the director's chair, and I think this is a perfect proof of concept that she has a lot ahead of her in her directorial career. So hope that this film succeeds. Hope we get to see more of her later down the line. And as for final score, I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. So those are my thoughts on Blink Twice. What did you think of this movie? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did it work for you? Did it not? Did you feel like you were being preached at? Did you feel like you could resonate with it? I would love to hear what you have to say down in the comments. Just don't go at each other's throats over this. This is just a movie after all. Be sure to like this video if you like this review. Check out all my other links in the description. I got my Instagram, my Letterboxd, my GG, my Serialized, all down below, where you can find other social media posts by me and reviews of other movies that don't make it onto this YouTube channel. I put a lot of time and effort into those, so I would highly recommend you guys check it out and be greatly appreciated if you did. But until next time, God be with you and take care.